Hello, my name is Karan Kelly. I'm a technology integrator in Central Maine and work for the Maine Department of Education, running their SLAM program, the Student Leadership Ambassadors of Maine. I recently attended a symposium for Google in Madrid where we talked about a number of different tools, and one that I was asked more information about was Looker Studio. So I offered to create a little tutorial on what Looker Studio is, how it works, and different applications that you might be able to find it useful in your schools. So first we'll do a little introduction, then I'll share some educational examples of Looker in the classroom, what the admins need to know, and what a workflow looks like. So first, our introduction to Looker Studio. It is a data visualization tool used to create interactive dashboards and reports. Looker connects various data sources to visualize with charts, tables, reports, and share the results with others. The idea is that you'll collect data, you'll organize it and manipulate it in whatever way you need to, and then you can share this in either a public or a semi-public way where others can access it and filter it as they need. Let's look at some examples. We'll talk about a course guide, a video archive that we use for our SLAM show, student portfolios, bus behaviors, and data wall. So first, let's look at the course guide. So this here is an example of a Looker Studio being shared publicly. And this is all of our courses here at our district in RSU 19. So you as a student or a parent, you could choose by grade level. So let's say I've got a 10th grader here. I can filter by what content areas I'm looking for. Maybe I'm looking for specific classes. So we'll do English, and then it'll kind of filter down, as you can see here below. Duration, am I looking for a full year? Am I looking for a semester? Let's say a full year course. And then this will kind of narrow it down. So what happens from the other end, I'll show you in a second, is people can add information. The guidance council or the administration can create the courses, put them all together. And then this can be shared publicly so people can say, oh, actually, I want to not only look at full year, I also want to look at some one semester courses. So this will be able to do that and sort. They can't change anything. This is read only, but they can easily find it. I'll show you the back end here. So this is just a Google Sheet. This is the entry here, and all this information is editable by the guidance department or the teachers that it makes sense to have access to. And this all feeds that Looker that you saw just a second ago. This one right here. Another example of a tool that we use, another Looker Studio example here, this is our archive. So we do the Student Leadership Ambassadors of Maine, or SLAM show. It's a weekly live YouTube stream where my students will create tutorials for teachers and educators around the state and beyond. And we're now up to episode 105, as you can see. So all those episodes, all that information, we want to make it easy for people to be able to sort or look for them from past. And so every time we have a new episode, a new YouTube video, this will create thumbnails, it will tell the topics, it will have the information in it, and you can of course organize up here, same thing, I can sort by topics, I can organize by dates, I can organize by the schools that we have visited, because we do travel around the state and do these events all over. And so if I want to click on one of these, it will pull up MLTI here, it will pull up that video specifically of the one that we're looking for. Another example here, I'll jump to here. This is a portrait of a warrior. So We Are the Warriors is our mascot. And one of the things that our students are required to do is collect information for a portfolio throughout their academic career. And this basically just binds it all together, and they can just have it as one unit when they graduate. So this is our opening page here. And then each of these will be limited by the student themselves. So as they enter information, it will pull it all together for one student here. So this is their portrait of a warrior. So this is their portfolio. We'll start here. This will jump to their academic strengths that they've collected. They put it in. Habits of work. Also, they've collected as they follow through. And then finally, portfolio evidence. The cool thing about the portfolio evidence is they can copy and paste the links as they go. And these will link to actual work that the students created as they go throughout their academic career. And so I'll just show you, the reason why I share this one specifically is I want to show you a little bit in the back end here. This does filter by an email address. So I can add a filter. And the reason why that's useful is the student can see their own portfolio at any time. Let me click on here. I'll just show you filter by email. So what that means is that if you want to collect information from an administrator perspective and put it all together and then have students just see just their own information, this will only allow them to see theirs that is connected to their email address, which of course would be unique to them. So it's a super handy tool aspect of this and an easy way to share. Just want to make sure I undo everything here. Another example is the bus behavior. And so we have a form that the bus drivers will fill out either on their phone or when they get back to the office of if there's a behavioral issue. And this all comes to one place. And then the administration can look at this either by school or by grade or also by student. One of the reasons why this is very useful is if I come up here, I can schedule delivery. So what that means is that a report will come out and you can organize it by filtering. So a school's report would go out to each school administrator for their school, not all of the incidents that happen, but just for their school, and we can schedule delivery. So it happens daily. So they get an email in the morning, the first part of the day. We'll have, if there was any bus issues, either the night before or that morning, it'll automatically come to them, and they can respond to it as they want. We also look here by individual students. If I want to sort by, and I'm going to not pull this down right now, but if I want to pull this down to show one student, it would just organize by them. And the final example we're going to show in here is our data wall, we call it. Basically, it collects a lot of different sources of information. So we've got our NWEA testing, our F&P, all these things come into one place. And so if I'm sure I can pull up by one student and I can sort and I can organize and I can see just by one student instead of having to search it around. So this brings multiple sources all to one place, allows teachers to be able to look in one location and see all their different testing, the different assessments, all the different components they would want in one place. And here's another example of that. All right. The last thing I want to mention as far as for workflow, if you are an administrator, just here in Looker Studio, so it isn't appropriate for students. It's more appropriate for either administration or teachers over 18. And you can choose how the Looker Studio final products are shared. Are they shared publicly? Are they shared just within the own domain? Are they shared with specific other domains? You can whitelist other domains outside your own. But you'll want to do that. If you are an administrator, you want to make sure that it's turned on just for teachers or administrators or IT personnel. And then you want to make sure that you've kind of organized it the way that you want before you push it out to the greater audience. All right, so let's look at an example workflow. And so this right here is going to be how we did a specific project. This is a project I shared at the symposium that I'm going to go through just as an example. There's many different ways. Obviously, there's a million different examples you can use for this. But this is one that just worked for us. Using forms to collect the information, sheets to kind of organize it and manipulate it and make sure it's formatted correctly as we want. That goes into Looker Studio, so that makes that public face or semi-public face where people can filter it as they need individually. And then finally, that can be embedded right into a Google site. So I'll just share with you an example that we've used. We're lucky enough to have a project we're working on, my students are working on, right down the road from our school. There's this gorgeous library/museum called the Levi Stewart Museum, and my students are working on digitizing many artifacts from it, 3D artifacts, documents, the whole thing. And so one of the things we want to do is be able to organize that process, right? So we're taking images of documents, of historic documents. These are over 100 years old, and so obviously there's a lot of data there. How do we organize that whole process? So here they are doing that. There's some kids taking 360 photos as well. So here's an example of a document that students were taking. This was a letter, and it has the as you can see here, it has the envelope, also the different pages from it. And so we would record that in highest quality we can. We had a very nice camera that we would shoot in RAW, which is a really high quality level. One of the drawbacks of shooting in RAW is it's not super portable. If I want to just text that to you or email it to you, your device might not be able to read it because usually JPEG is a better or PNG is a better example of an image, more user friendly. So one thing that we do in that process is we create a form right here. So this is just let's click up here real quick. This is what our form might look like. And these are the students would go through and fill this in. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to fill this in. This is our collection. We're going to do a document. I click next. The benefit of the form is it kind of makes sure that the students fill it in the correct way. We don't want to leave any parts out. So right here, document title, of course, we'll put the title in here of whichever thing it is we were looking at. But we also give them a archive doc. So this is just a Google Doc copy. The reason why is one of the pieces of this is it's not just taking a picture of that image, it's also transcribing it. Now, we used Google Gemini to do that. I believe that I have up here. So we would upload an image that has, as you can see here, pretty messy writing here, or maybe it was messy for the time, but it's certainly difficult for us to read now. It's certainly for our students. So we would just upload that, ask it to transcribe it. We'd copy that text, put it back into the Google Doc. And this gives them the opportunity too, here in that Google Doc, to go through and analyze, like if there's a word that looks close, they can go through and read it a little bit easier than trying to do it, on the fly. Once they've filled that in, they'll go through and then they'll copy and paste that transcription right here, and then fill a bunch of different information. What does it pertain to? Where was it located in the building? This is the slide deck I mentioned that has the imagery on it that we would upload it to. Document date, other types of things like that. So all this information would come in into a Google form, which would then feed directly into there's a road here, into a spreadsheet. Let me reset the imagery here. So this is just a spreadsheet, as you've seen many times before. It fills right in. One thing that we do here, however, is not only did the spreadsheet come in, we create a new filtered tab. Now, I think this is important to connection to the Looker Studio, because the raw data comes in, all the collection, but there might be things that you might want to do with it. You might organize it certain ways. And I don't mean change the actual text. I mean automate that process. So for example, as I mentioned, we have these imageries coming in. These are just a Google slide that they upload it to. But one thing you can do to Google Slide is you can directly link to a single slide as an image. So if you've ever inserted an image by URL, you can do that in slides directly to each one, which is very, very handy, especially if you're doing many images, right? And so I'll just show you that process and kind of understand what we're doing here, the manipulation. So this is an example here. So this isn't a real example. This is just showing you how this works. This one would take this example here. So this is the copy and paste of that individual slide. Now each slide has what's called a key, which is a unique identifier for that slide. We would then use some code here. This is just some functions to remove everything else except for that key by itself. So here it is by itself, that unique key for that image. We then add it to an image link. I'll just throw an equals here. We'll turn it on. And what that does now is that now makes it as a, if you notice here in the middle, it changes it to export/PNG. So that means that there's an individual image based on that slide. So if I click on this link now, it will go directly to that image. And the final piece here, we will share the published link. And that means that we can share that publicly so people can see that. And then as a test to make sure it's all working, I'll just throw an equals sign in front of this image tag. And that shows me there it is. That is the image that we just uploaded as a single slide. That's a lot of steps. The benefit of it is once you've set this up back here, as I mentioned in the filtered tab, I can come over here and we can do an array formula. Let me jump over here, right here. And these are all, so I basically have that process once at the very, very first row, and then it just fills in for all of them. So I don't have to do that again. You just basically do it once and it will automate that process. All right, so we've pulled in our data here to our entry. We've filtered that and kind of organized that into our raw data. We then pull that into our Looker Studio. So let me pull up right here. Here's our example. So this is just a looker here, that information. Here's the image, here's the text. I can organize it by documents, I can organize it by years, by date, any kind of process I want to. It also makes it clickable. Like I mentioned, each slide is its own image. So if I click on one of these, it will pull itself up as its own slide, as its own image right here, which is what we want. So that's another step, but it's kind of built into the process. So that's a real example, a real life example that we're using Looker Studio in a very useful way. This is shared right on their website I mentioned. You can have a Google site here. This is our Google site that we have the different information we're working on. And we have it embedded right here under the archive that you can embed that directly and people can access it and see the results of your work. Which brings us to our actual Looker Studio. So we're going to go through the process here. Let me close down some tabs. and go through the process of, that's great, but how do I create one? What do I do here? So I'm just going to use this data that we have here so we don't have to start fresh. I'm going to assume that you know how to create a form, how do you create a spreadsheet, from that form, and then we're going to take that information into a Looker Studio and do something with it. So here's our blank report. If you look at the templates, you notice a lot of them are kind of based on this idea of like YouTube or that kind of data manipulation, seeing links and seeing clicks and that kind of stuff. There are multiple sources you can pull from, BigQuery and Sheets and so forth. I'm just going to do Sheets here because that's usually what I do because I give that opportunity to organize it. Here's my archive, that same spreadsheet I just mentioned a second ago. In here is each of the tabs. Now I'm using the filter tab, which is the one that I mentioned that I pull the raw information into another one. I'll just show you one other quick example here in the filtered tab, tab here in the spreadsheet. So for example, if I want to see, notice this is like a just checkbox at the beginning. If for some reason I needed to remove one of these rows, one of these pieces of documents, I don't know why, it's not up to date or needs to be fixed or whatever it is, I can simply, I make it so that this will check and that will automatically update at the other end. So this gives me that kind of interface, if you want to call it that. I can kind of turn these on and off. It's a lot easier to do that than deleting the row and then having to add it later on or whatever. So that just gives you that option. And that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, why we connect. All right, so I want to include a specific range. In this case, I want to include, let's go back here. We're doing B1, so I'm in a column B, number 1, all the way to, see at the very, very end here, we will do BN, so column BN. So B1 to BN. You don't have to do a sub range in there. You can do the entire sheet if that's easier for you, whichever makes sense from your end. So I'm going to add that. So we've collected that information in a form, we've filtered it in a spreadsheet, we've done some filtering a little bit here, and now we're in our layout. So I prefer to do a responsive layout. Basically what that means is that it will, let's say somebody's looking at it on their phone versus a tablet versus a laptop versus a whatever, it will respond as it says, different than it just kind of stays as a single page that you kind of have to navigate around. So we'll throw that in there. All right, it does have some template stuff here, which I'm not going to worry about. Over on the right here, let's look at all the stuff going on. So we've got our title, of course. And then if I go to resources, right across the top in the menu here, I'm going to click resources. And the very first one, manage added resources. Click on that. This is our filtered tab we mentioned earlier. So here it is. I can click edit. When you pull those in, now I go back to the spreadsheet for a second, all these data sources here, all these different columns, right? Each one is a different type. It might be a link, maybe it's a date, maybe it's a text, maybe it's a number, all these things. And if I look down here, you'll notice what type is it? Is it a text? Is it a date? Is it a URL? All that stuff. You will want to make sure these are accurate. So if I come through here, let's say, for example, there's the published link. I mentioned that earlier. Here's the published link. And you notice it came in as a text field. I'm going to change that to a URL because that needs to be a URL. And so you'll want to go through, make sure those are all accurate. Again, I'm not going to go too far into it, but you can see that right here. This is also where I mentioned where you'd filter by email if you want to limit it so that only somebody with their email address will be automatically filtered. So let's say you have a number of different things, like a number of different data sources and all kinds of stuff, but you only want them to see their own. That's how you would do that. They have to be signed in, they have to be on their email address, and it would automatically limit to that. And you would choose which of these fields it connects to. All right, I'm gonna click done. We'll click close. And let's grab, let's see here, let's grab the title, somewhere here, right, the document title. So I'm gonna drag that over here. All right, so I've got a report. A little bit bigger. There we go. All right, so this is a table, and I just dragged one of the sources over here, and this was the document title. And I dragged it over to the middle here. If you want to add different types of tables or charts, that kind of stuff, right across the top here. Add charts. So there's tables. That's what I just created right here, one of the tables. There's scorecard, which is individual numbers. There's bar charts. There's pie charts. There's all kinds of cool stuff. And you can do, again, depending on what you're trying to share. The model that I've seen most frequently, kind of the templates they use, again, is like if you are run a YouTube channel, you can see reports on, oh, where in the world, am I getting clicks, or what's the information, what's the demographic, all that kind of stuff. You might be interested in that kind of dashboard. But in this case, I just dragged the title over here. And I can click over here. It pulls in report, his report title. These controls up above here, you notice here it says set date range. What a control is basically is I have all this data. I want to be able to organize it by it. Let's say I wanted to sort it by title or by date or whatever filter you want. That's what these things are right here. So I'll let's choose a drop-down list right here, and I'm just going to drag it in. I actually want to put it up on the top. There we go. And so if you notice here, automatically created a drop down of the titles. And this is super helpful because you would want to organize by one, but we're just going to kind of get the feel of see how that works. Let's grab some dates. So again, I'm over here on the data. To see these panels on the right side, I can click on all these filter bar, properties, data on the far right here, and I can turn those on and off. You can pull them out and pull them back. So we'll just stick with data for a second right now. Let's go to date. And if I drag that date as well into the same table as I had earlier, let's see, I don't think, oh, we didn't actually collect dates. All right, here, document date. That's the one I want. So document date. Let's try that again. We'll have another column here. There we go. There's my document dates. So this date wasn't very useful. So I'm actually going to get rid of that one. I'll go to my properties here. I'll go to setup, and I'll see here. There's my document date, the one that I didn't want. I'm sorry, that's the one I did want. Where's date here? There, date. I can just X that out right there. And now I've got this. Now, you'll also notice, or if you can see there really tiny there, you have null in the middle there. So those are basically rows that don't have any information in them. I don't really need to show that, right? So one of the cool things I can do in here, I can go to style. This is the style of the actual table itself. So I can scroll down here and I can say, look, I don't want to show if it is null here, right here. If there's missing data, I'm just going to leave that blank. And that will just go away. That's cool. Other things in here, I mean, you can change all kinds of cool stuff in here as far as the looks, right? So if I wanted it organized, let's say I want to change the font size, the font color, all that kind of stuff that you might want to change. Let's make that a little bit wider here. Okay, other things in setup here, if we want to start adding different sorting, right? So right now it's going to sort right here. It's sorted by the record count, which isn't super useful. So I'm going to actually take that date, document date one. I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to overwrite that. So now it's going to sort descending order by the date. And you could have multiple sorts. So if I want to sort by date first and then title next, or you can have multiple layers of that, which is kind of handy. And let's add a link here now. So we have our image link. I'm going to drag that over in here. Okay, so this is now a clickable link where if I want to click on that, it would pull up directly to an image. Let's see if I'd have to view it here. So let's make that clickable here. And that should go directly to one of the pictures. Yep, it did download it actually, but there it is, one of the images. Okay, edit. You'll notice here I keep kind of changing the columns here, and again you can adjust those. You can also make your own calculated field. So for example, this image link is pretty ugly in my mind, right? It doesn't look great. But what I can do is I can have it so the image link is clickable, but actually shows the image itself. So if you think about a hyperlink, you would basically show an image as an image tag, but the hyperlink would click to something else. So let's add a field, a calculated field. And so what we're going to be able to do here, if I call this display image, so this is the name of it, and I'm going to write a little function that's going to say I want to show the image, but I want the hyperlink to be something else, right? So for example, if I say image right here, so you notice how the function started to come up here. So here's image, and what's going to go inside of it? We have the image link right here. So though this is the calculated field, this is the field that you have already labeled, and this is the formula here. If I click save right now, it's just going to show that picture. Well, I don't want that. I want it to actually be a hyperlink. So I'm going to put in hyperlink in there. And what's the hyperlink going to go to? It's going to go to the published. Right there, our pub link, comma, There it is. Okay, so let's examine this for a second. This is called display image. The hyperlink goes to the published link that we put in there. The image link goes to the image link, which again, you think they'd be the same thing, but they're not. One is the link to the image and one is the link to the published version of that. So that looks good right there. Oh, I forgot a comma. Parentheses there. That should be better. There we go. Click save. All right, let's take our, let's find our display image right here. And I'm going to drag that over into our table now. And it should show us. Let's try to add that again. There it goes. And there they are. And then these images are starting to load. I think it's taking a minute. But you'll see them here. So those are clickable. Those go directly to that published link. Let's hide the image link here. And you get the idea of how that will work. All right, so the last thing I'm going to share is kind of sharing publicly, or how would you do that? So if I click up here in the upper right, I've got my options here. You can invite other people as editors, kind of like all the Google Docs and that kind of stuff. You can get a report link so that somebody could just go to it and just see it and access it, but not actually be able to change anything, just read only. Embed report is just like it sounds like, is you get a embed code, you can copy and paste that into, say, a Google site or something like that. Download report is going to create a PDF. And again, we didn't get into this, but you can do multiple pages. So if you have new pages and each page does a different thing, that's an option. We'll click share here. And again, this looks very familiar if you're used to this, where you're making it public. Is it just unlisted so certain individuals can see it if they have the link, or you're keeping it restricted? All right. So I hope that was helpful to you as just a precursor, just an introduction to Looker, what it is and what you might find it useful for. I am going to offer a webinar. So Friday, December 5th, from 5:30 to 6:30 GMT. I will add the Google Meet link on the same page, so you are welcome to join me. That one presupposes that you have watched this video where we are now, so you kind of had an introduction, and then I will answer questions as they come up during the meet. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.